In politics, they call it a gerrymander when you move areas around to benefit what you're trying to accomplish. So I call it a gerrymander. Additionally, if you're trying to control elk in a certain area, do like to do all over the state. They give tags, they give B licenses, they give all that. You move the lines, and that's it, folks. You can't come back, but you can give special tags and access those elk the way they do all over the state.
You bet. Does anybody else want to comment on the boundaries? Mike?
I didn't see anybody else getting up right away, so I thought I'd take that opportunity. I think the thing that I'd comment on quickly is just the idea behind the 240, 250, 270 boundary change. I agree with about everything everybody had to say based on the premises that they were thinking about. The idea actually is to match the boundaries to the movements and the herd units of those animals who actually use those areas. And that was some of the outcome that Safari Club helped pay for, Elk Working Group worked on years ago and so forth, was to understand in part the herd units and those migration patterns of those critters. It turns out that the elk that are in the greatest peril, if you will, are in the main westport, within the boundary that is proposed. I mean, that's why we're here, is to truth test that with you folks and what other collateral damage there might be there. But the fact is, those elk that have the lowest calf-cow ratios and the lowest survival are described within the proposed hunting district 250. If the elk that are growing on Warrensburg and so forth are included in 270 and 240, that provides additional hunter opportunity that wouldn't be available if we leave the boundary the way it is, because we wouldn't be able to increase permits because we have those vulnerable elk in there. So that was the thinking for that. Thank you.
In politics, they call it a gerrymander when you move areas around to benefit what you're trying to accomplish. So I call it a gerrymander.
These are big changes here in the Bitterroot that are being proposed. In May of just this year, Mike Thompson, our regional wildlife manager, is published as saying, we're experiencing higher calf production and survival, being up from 2008 levels of 14 calves per 100 cows to 2013 levels of 25 cows per 100 cows on a valley-wide average. Mike was also quoted as saying our bull-to-cow ratios were okay biologically, even back then, with enough bulls to take care of the breeding, he said. Then he referenced a problem with growing bulls was due to the low cow calf recruitment and the numbers referenced in prior years. This would seem to indicate our bull numbers will dramatically increase with the new higher calf recruitment numbers, which are documented. This was all just this spring. Mike goes on to say it's a goal to reintroduce more hunting back in the Bitterroot, getting it back the way it used to be, so that we can hunt in a sustainable fashion that we can count on year after year. Then in October, just going into this season, Mike said it's shaping up to be a good year in this region. For the second year in a row, elk numbers have continued to grow in both the east and west forks of the Bitterroot. He said we had the first highest elk count in 270 that we've ever had. What changed so dramatically since these statements just a few months ago? You know, I'm also honored to sit on the Bitterroot Valley Elk Working Group. Tom Powers did a fantastic job on that before, and I stepped in behind Tom. And this board acts as, this committee acts as an advisory council of Fish, Wildlife, and Parks on issues that affect elk in our valley. It's made up of a diverse group of people representing positions of landowners, conservation organizations such as mine, archery hunters, farmers, the outfitting industry, and much more. This group has been in existence for nearly a decade. You know how much time and energy we put into these proposals at the Elk Working Group? Take a guess. Zero. None. We weren't even informed of these proposals by an email. I read about them in a paper. You know, evidence clearly shows the proposals that were drafted were between the Ravalli County Fish and Wildlife Group and Fish and Game.
The other thing was, you may not have got an invitation to the special group that we formed, but everyone on the elk working group was invited, including Scott, and every other person that was on the elk working group was invited.
Except me.
Well, you as a late comer, or maybe didn't have your email, I don't know. I wasn't in charge of it. We have a new president. Maybe it was an oversight on his part.
Tony Jones from Hamilton. One of the reasons we supported the boundary change was the additional hunter opportunity that would come from that east slope of 250, which would then become 270. There's some game damage issues with the Trinity Ranch that we've been able to harvest some cow out there that we can't harvest now because they're in 250. And then same with that south end of 240 taken on 250. There's a good huntable number of elk there that right now hunters can't get to. And in this valley, as hunter opportunity has dwindled, this is a chance to actually add hunter opportunity.
We're here tonight to discuss these proposals, which could conceivably impact every hunter in the valley. Based on what? Science or the special interest of a few? On the hunter opportunity side, if you've accumulated the 12 bonus points for a coveted elk tag over in the breaks or the highwoods like I have, and if you ever want to hunt a bull elk here in the Bitterroot again, under these proposals, you can kiss your chances of drawing that breaks tag goodbye. Because your bonus points are going to go to this unlimited Bitterroot tag. I can assure you from research I've completed in this state, once the Bitterroot goes to an all-draw bull elk harvest opportunity, we'll face a daunting task to ever get over the counter bull tags back here again.
The boundaries were drawn up. Ben Jimenez was part of it. He's been flying these surveys, flying this elk study. He knows the movements. He knows where those elk come and go from. And simply put, they weren't really West Fork elk. They were moving off that east side of the West Fork, but mainly back and forth to the East Fork. So traditionally, they are East Fork elk, and it just made sense to move them into the East Fork so we could hunt them, stay back and forth on the other 250. This thing wasn't just drawn up throwing darts at a map.
In politics, they call it a gerrymander when you move areas around to benefit what you're trying to accomplish. So I call it a gerrymander.
Gentlemen, Bud Martin, 4th generation Bitterrooter. First off, I would like to take an opportunity to thank John Wemple for stating the real problem, which is Mike, with our Region 2 Fish and Wildlife Manager. The boundary changes in the Bitterroot are simply an agenda to manipulate numbers for the hardest hit elk population in the valley, which is the West Fork. And that's, don't let anybody fool you. That's why they're trying to change the boundaries for the West Fork, is to manipulate the numbers to make you think that they're doing their job. That's not the case.
Jason Ellsworth here from Hamilton. Appreciate Senator Thomas and Senator Boulanger for putting this on, and definitely appreciate SCI for being here. I think there's a lot of truths in what people have said when they've come up here. When I look at this, what I see is very ad hoc. And what I mean by that is, like somebody grabbed a bunch of crayons and decided to just make marks as they felt appropriate. You know, I don't see the science behind it in any way, shape, or form. We're talking about counts that have not been confirmed yet. So certainly don't understand why we're even addressing this at this time. We're way ahead of ourselves, and I certainly don't understand why we're ahead of the game when we haven't even looked at the game from this last year yet. That's all. Thank you.
You know, one thing that I think we need to consider, particularly on these boundary changes in the South Valley, is the Bitterroot Valley is blessed with some of the best elk data and statistics in the state. And this data is decades old from aerial surveys, where elk have grown, where elk have had problems, and so on. You start messing with boundaries, and you start changing a measurable metric that we currently have that we can follow within this valley, and then people who come in from different administrations or different ideas or philosophies can skew these numbers however they want. You've got to be really careful with changing what is a measurable metric of elk habitat, elk survival, elk recruitment over decades. So you have to be really careful with that. I know there's some concerns with law enforcement, how 270 and 250 maybe can overlap. You know, poachers are poachers. We've got to take care of the bad apples as we always have. But I don't know that that justifies changing decades-old data. That's what I have to say about the changing of the boundary.
I rarely ever kill an animal, but it's not because I don't see him, because I just hunt for strictly trophy. That's all I've hunted for years. But the opportunity that we have, I love to hunt. I don't care if I kill anything, I just love to be out in the woods. I love to hunt. And I hate to think that we're going to give up that opportunity. That's one of the scariest things to me, for my children, my grandchildren, and I won't be very long, another 2 years or so, I'll probably have great-grandchildren here in the valley. I want my family to know the love of the outdoors. I want them to be able to spend that time, that they will be able to have the passion and the understanding of what goes on in nature. Thank you.